Hello, welcome to GG Lab Analysis. This time the topic is the original Pokemon games for the Game Boy system. They gained a huge popularity in the 90s and were accompanied by cartoons, card games, lunchboxes, merchandise, you name it. Now, although nobody can deny that the huge marketing was one of the big reasons the game got so popular, it's not just that. E.T. was a very popular movie, but it didn't fool people into thinking that the game was good as well. It doesn't work that way. Marketing can sell a game well, but it can't make people like the game. It can't make people play the game over and over again, or collect 150 digital pets. So you can't argue that the game was successful. It was well played and well liked. You may not like the games, but you can't deny that they were successful. So we're going to analyze the original Pokemon games and find out what made them so successful, as well as analyzing some of their faults. Pokemon is on the surface a Japanese RPG dogfight. Well, yes, it's all about exploration, and the defeated Pokemon faint instead of, passing out from blood loss or cranial trauma. But, except from exchanging guys with wacky hair for cute critters, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference. At first. In game design, sometimes what seems like a small change can create a whole genre and change the world of games forever. And really, no example is better than Pokemon. Look at the game. Tell me the one big difference between Pokemon and a similar JRPG game. Not too hard to spot. That's right. Capturing your enemies, letting them fight for you. That's it. Simple. You capture a monster you're fighting and use it against other monsters. No big deal. But does anyone realize how much freedom this system gives players? Any enemy you fight, well, excluding a trainer's Pokemon, but never mind that. Any enemy that you fight can, with a bit of work, become part of your party. You have 150 party members to choose from, and you're free to use any combination you want. You can choose the ones that you find coolest, solo the game with only one Pokemon, or defeat them all with an army of Magikarps. That would be kind of stupid, but you could do it. Pokemon has freedom. Not only it has freedom, but it has variety. There's cute Pokemon, ugly ones, weird ones, cats, bats, crabs, eggs, and even creepy things with tentacles. In other words, there's Pokemon for all tastes, meaning that each person can choose the ones they like best. The game appeals to a wide variety of people. When was the last time that you could choose to fight with either a fire-breathing dragon or a cute pink ball that sings? So the game has freedom and variety, a powerful combination. Freedom and variety are two key elements when it comes to making good games. Freedom allows for different ways of playing in the game and gives you more control over the experience. Variety keeps the game from falling into a rut and getting boring. Freedom and variety. And it's not as if the game was incredibly revolutionary. Aside from that simple element, the rest of the game follows our JRPG conventions pretty closely. Levels and experience, turn-based combat, items, quests for the 8 crystals, badges. Trainer badges. Slip of the tongue. So, Pokemon only brought one change with it. Just one change. I want to emphasize this because it shows just with small changes you can make a whole different game. One single game mechanic that is well thought out, original, and interesting can turn an average game into a success. It can make or break a new game. You don't need to create something entirely original and genre-defying for it to be interesting. Sometimes, just one change is enough. Aside from that one unique aspect, there's not that much to talk about in terms of game design. But here are a few interesting points. The game is surprisingly non-linear, which is quite different from the average JRPG. You can fight some gyms in non-linear order, you can teach your Pokemon moves and customize it to a certain extent. That is good. Freedom is good. The game's balance is also an interesting aspect, because enemies and the player's characters are more or less the same thing in the system, and so they have to be balanced. In most games, enemies and the players are very, very different. Enemies were made to be defeated by the player, and as a result, some are too weak, Some are immune to practically everything, and some have abilities that are ridiculously overpowered. But since enemies and players come from the same stock, things are different. A battle with Pokemon at the same level should be a fair challenge where the winner will come out very hurt. This forces the players to either grind to levels way above their enemies, or to play strategically, which is good. The levels also let the player know more or less where they stand, and can give a good idea of the challenge. On the other side, balance is horribly broken by the fact that certain Pokemon are much better than others. And especially the broken type of Pokemon called Psychic, which has no weaknesses in the first games. Overall, the balance in the Pokemon games is interesting, but still far from perfect, although it got better in the later installments. Another staple in many JRPGs, random encounters, has also an interesting twist in these games in that they only happen in tall grass. This gives the players more control over how they want to face these random encounters. They can just zoom through the area, walk in as little grass as possible, or they can just walk on the same patch of grass over and over again in order to grind and get more experience. They can choose how they want to play the game. Except for those damn caves. I mean, really, they had such a good concept with the tall grass. It worked. It let the players choose how much random encounters they wanted to risk. And then on caves, it's all thrown out the window. Random encounters everywhere. It is very annoying. It is very badly designed, and there is no reason for them to do it that way, because they already had invented a better alternative. It truly baffles me. The story is bare bones basic stuff, really. It amounts to little more than an excuse to fight trainers, capture Pokemon, and move from point A to point B. The best thing that can be said about it is that it doesn't get in the way. The only interesting thing that I can think about in the Pokemon stories is that you usually aren't really a hero. You're not out to save the world or to save anything, really. I mean, yes, there is Team Rocket there thrown in as the stock villains, but the main objective is not to really defeat Team Rocket. The objective of the game is basically to be the best, either by defeating the League or by capturing all the Pokemons. And that's one of the rare examples of the stories where you're not really a hero or a villain. You're just a protagonist. It's an interesting point, that's all. Pokemon is a game that really had only one new mechanic going for it. One big change. But it was original, it was well done, and it allowed for a lot of freedom and variety and choice. And it succeeded. It was well liked. There are probably many people who started their hardcore gaming life with Pokemon. It's not a perfect game by any standards, but it worked. When you look at it, it's very surprising. It's very surprising that a Japanese-style RPG with very simple graphics, turn-based combat, and family-friendly content could ever get so popular. Which just goes to show that a good, well-developed, and interesting game mechanic can do wonders. Even if that mechanic involves enslaving animals that lived happily in the wilderness and forcing them to fight for your amusement. Better not think too hard about that.